Hello everyone. Hello sir. Good morning. Good morning, Suresh. Sir, let me know when can we start. Okay. 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 Good. Hey, good morning everyone. So this is our session 2. So in the first session, we saw some basics on data structure and some on algorithm, but we didn't get into coding yet. So most of the session we were just talking, and it was more of a theoretical session where I was explaining the basic concepts. So I thought probably in this session we can get into very basic level of programming. Then we can go deeper in the upcoming sessions. So as I said in the last session itself, let's keep this as much as interactive as possible. If you have any questions, any basic doubts that you have, just stop me or ping me in the chat and post that query. Because I have been on the other side. I know how it feels. Someone talks about something completely new or something wrong. So feel free to stop anywhere, or if you have any queries, feel free to stop and ask me. So don't treat me like another college professor, because their experience is different from what experience I'm coming up with. So if you have any queries about companies or anything about interviews or So anything that happens specifically at companies, how we build and how do we interact with people, anything, any queries that you might have, because you are all going to face all this in a year's time. So I can help you as much as possible wherever I can in these aspects, rather than just talking about some specific topics. So even I'll also try more from a perspective that rather than just talking about any specific technical topics, I'll try to cover more than that, which may not be available in your textbook. But it will be more useful only if you also start talking and becoming more interactive, or ask me any queries, so that if I want to know something, I can also get it clarified. If I don't know something, definitely I'll go back and try to get the answer for you. Yeah. So in this session, we are going to talk basics on OOPS, and probably if the time permits, we can just run some experiment with between a couple of languages. So how these programming languages perform, we can do some experiments. So to start with, so let me open a site called Octoverse. So one question. So which language you think is being used widely in the world right now? You can talk, or you can ping in the chat. Which language is being used widely right now? Any answers? Java and Python. Okay. Let me share my screen. C. So in my experience in the last 12 years, I have interacted probably only 2 or 3 people who is into development of C language, but I have interacted with more people who is working in C++. But people who is working in C, their objective will be more specific. Mostly they might be working somewhere on OS level or network level programming. That is what I have seen. But the C++ is widely used comparatively to C in the corporate world. So yeah, so the most of the answer that says it's Java and Python. So can you all see my screen? Okay, good. So every year, github.com, they publish something called Octoverse. Yeah. So Octoverse generally talks about what's going on in the whole programming world. So they give a lot of interesting stats that is happening. Mostly that the interaction, most of these interaction happens at github.com, but that pretty much summarizes a good pick of data around the whole world. So this talks about how many total developers are there, and how many new repositories are created, how much amount of contribution that has been made, and where are these people coming from. And yes, to answer the question I was asking. So top languages over the years. So for a long time, at least I can see from 2014 to 2020, it's JavaScript, which is on top. Then comes Python. Before till 2018, it was Java, but Python overtook. Then third place comes for Java, followed by TypeScript, C#, PHP, C++, C, Shell, and Ruby. So only these are not the mainly used languages. There are other languages like Golang, Rust, Erlang. So these languages being used widely right now because, for example, Golang is the one I think most of the tech companies adopting right now because this language is being backed by Google, and they are the main promoter of this language and main contributor for this open source language. And there is a language called Rust, and there is Erlang. WhatsApp uses Erlang predominantly for most of their operation. So yeah, JavaScript is being used widely. I think the main reason behind the JavaScript being on the top is because of Node.js. Node.js is a JavaScript runtime which serves. I know personally that most of the tech companies, at least billion-dollar companies in India, they use Node.js for their backend. So it uses JavaScript, and also it does server-side rendering, which is not used to be the case with vanilla JS, where it was only it does client-side rendering. But since Node.js became very popular, it started doing server-side rendering, and the usage and adoption of the language in the developer community, it's spiking. And the TypeScript is pretty much new comparatively with JavaScript, but it's I would say it's a wrapper written on top of JavaScript. So, for example, languages like frameworks like React.js uses TypeScript. So TypeScript, I would say it enforces more rules comparatively to your JavaScript. So, for example, it mostly checks all your errors during compile time rather than runtime, which JavaScript doesn't do. So that's the major advantage of why TypeScript is becoming number 4 right now. So no wonder if it might go further in the upcoming years, because the report of 2021 is set to be released. So probably in a few months that will also be released. We can see at that time. So yeah, so why I was showing this, I wanted to show one thing. Probably it will be useful for all of you. So GitHub has something called Student Developer Pack. So where I won't be eligible, but you all can have a look at it. So what it does is it gives you all the services to launch your own application or your project, or even if you want to start your own company, they give pretty much everything for free. All the services, top services you need to launch your complete end-to-end website is available for free. But this is only for students. You need a payment service, you need a mail service, you need a hosting service, you need a source code management service, you need a tracking service, you need an analytics, you need to take interviews. So it gives you end-to-end stack to build your complete application. So just go and check it out later. It's education.github.com. And there is something called, they have something for teachers as well, where it says GitHub Classroom. So I'm not sure how are you handling assignments right now. Probably you're writing it in a paper and then taking screenshots and uploading somewhere, or converting that into a PDF and uploading it somewhere. Instead, if you can write everything in your GitHub repo and do a code commit, and then your teacher will get an update that you have submitted your assignment. Probably this is one thing, if you are all interested, someone from your class can explore this, how it works, and convince your teachers to start using this. So I thought of just sharing it with you before starting today's session. And yeah, a couple more websites. So if you want to know what are all the advancements that is happening and what is the recent thing that is going on in the tech world, I would suggest the 2 places you need to keep looking at. So the first one is Hacker News. It's news.ycombinator.com. So where people crowdsource these data, and then they cumulatively upvote some of the best articles that is going on in this tech world. So this will be keep on updating on an hourly basis. So if you want to know, keep yourself updated with what's going on in tech, I think this is the best source right now. If you're interested, I can keep following this. Even there are plugins that is available in your browser. When you open a new tab, all the latest conversation from Hacker News appears there. So this is one place, and there is another place called Product Hunt. So Product Hunt is the portal where you will see what is being built latest around the world. So this is also something crowdsourced, where you build your product and go and publish it there. And if people like it, they will start upvoting it, and that will come on top. So this will also be updated on a daily basis. You will come to know what is being built around the world, especially if you want to become an entrepreneur, or if you're looking for some ideas what to build. These are the places that you need to look into. And obviously, most of the application, whenever you want to build something, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, because someone might have built some components of it already and published open source version of it. So if you are on a learning phase, I would suggest start open sourcing your code as well, so that others can look into what you are writing, and also they will be able to help you to upskill yourself. Okay. So I just thought of sharing these before getting into further stuff. Okay. Let me open a Jamboard. Any questions? Anything you wanted to ask? Just ping in the chat. Otherwise, I'll jump into further session. Can you see the whiteboard? Can someone ping me whether yeah, it is. Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay. So as I said, today let's jump into some basic programming. I'll not go deeper in the session, but I will keep it as minimal as possible. So I thought of touch base the basics of oops. Sorry. Just give me a moment. Okay, sorry, let's find some other way. Okay, let me close this. Let me start writing. So, what is basics of a language? What are the basic constructs of a language? So, basically, the first thing I would suggest is pick the right development environment. So, basically, that's called IDE. IDE is Integrated Development Environment. So, I prefer different IDEs for different purposes, but predominantly I use the one you are seeing right now. This is called the VS Code, Visual Studio Code. So, which is quite popular with JavaScript developers. So, I prefer VS Code for most of my coding, but the different developers will have different preference. So, so I use, as I said, I use VS Code. For Python, many developers use an ID called PyCharm, and Golang developers use an ID called Golang, because that will definitely improve the way uh, your basically it will improve your productivity if you can choose the right IDE. So don't still write it in Notepad or a text pad. Start working on an IDE, whichever that is comfortable to you. So I'm not suggesting anyone, but whichever you feel that works fine for you, pick that. So what else is there? You need to understand the data types that is used. So what are the different data types that is available in that particular language? Int, big int, string, list, arrays. So the basic data types that is used in that particular language, you need to know more about it. And how do you declare variables, and how to initialize it, how to assign data to it. So all these you need to know. And so how these specific keywords are used in a language. Like some language will have a keyword called new, some will have a new keyword called uh, go to or pass. So if else, elif. So there are different keywords that is specific to different languages. So the language that you are working on, you need to basically know what keywords that is being used there. And so you may need to use uh, logical and arithmetic operations on it. So some of the basics you may need to know. And so how these conditional statements are working, like if, else, while, uh, and loops, nested loops. So loops, nested loops. So you need to know all the basics of it. And what else? You need to know how functions or methods work in that specific language. And basically how IO operation, input output operations work in that specific language. So these are the basic constructs of any language. So what I would suggest is uh, I know you are in third year. Most of the time you are exposed to C, C++, and Java. So I have seen your curriculum. You have some basics of Python and PHP as well. But uh, if you want to be a very good engineer, I would say start become improving yourself and getting more expertise in just one language. So pick whatever that is comfortable to you. But I would suggest to just pick one language. If you like Java, go with Java. If you like Python, go with Python. If you like Golang or Ruby, or if you want to get your hands dirty with something new, try something with Erlang, Rust. So there are various sources that is available, and all the learning sources that is available for free of cost. So that is the most advantage that you have right now, which you can utilize it. So yeah. So as I said, pick one language that works better for you. So most of the time you'll think this can't be solved by this. This can be solved only by this. No, it's not like that. So one problem can be solved in 10 multiple ways, because in in the companies I have seen sometimes people use machine learning for the sake of using it, because most of the time the problems that we have can be simply solved by using an Excel sheet, because Excel sheet is going to be one of the most used tool in the corporate world. If you are a genius in Excel, you can be on top in the finance team or in the operations team inside the companies. So that is how it functions internally. So, and as I said, most of the things that can be solved by machine learning can be solved by Excel sheet or using a simple SQL scripts. So, as I said, one problem can be solved in multiple ways, and these languages uses different approaches to solve problems. So, for example, when I started learning sometime around 95, 96, I mean 1995 or 96. So when I was in my school, I started learning basics programming. If you have heard about this language, BASIC. So how do you write code in that? You write code something like this: 10 CLS. 10 CLS is clearing the screen, and 20 declare a variable, and 30 assign a variable, and do some operation and print the result. So you basically give step-by-step commands, and it will execute in the same order. And there are different ways to write, and these programming languages have evolved in the last 3 to 4 decades time tremendously. And these languages which follows step-by-step execution, so that is called procedural languages. So this is one of the approach how you write your code. There are many languages which falls under this procedural way of execution. So this is one. I would say it's one of the older approach. Most of the older languages which follows a procedural approach. Even some of your lab code that you will be doing with for electronic microprocessor related coding, that falls under this, because all those are very older approaches where we follow procedures. And there comes functional programming. Functional programming are the one which mainly uses mathematical expressions to solve the problem. So the advantage with functional programming is it's very easy to understand. So I mean, the readability will increase. There will be very less amount of code, but the amount you spend to write this code will be larger, because you need to have a lot more expertise to do some operation. Because, for example, you can write a simple for loop to have a calculation, to iterate over a loop and then add all the values. So in Python, the same thing can be done using lambda and using reduce methods. So for a newbie, if someone is looking at that code, for them the code might look simpler, but it will take more time for them to understand or write the code. So that is called functional programming, and one of the most popular approaches, object-oriented programming. So which is widely used currently. So object-oriented programming, so generally comes into picture architecture where you can reuse your code and write the code more modular and more in an efficient way. So there's no comparison here, which one works better or which one does the things faster. There are instances where your procedural approach will work faster, and there are instances where only your object-oriented approach will work better. But that depends on your use case and what are you trying to achieve. But these are some of the common programming paradigms that is being used widely at this moment. So for today's session, so my favorite pick is Python. But we will see how, if time permits, we'll see how Python compares. Probably we can compare it with Java or with Golang. We can compare it with any one of these languages, how fast Python is. So yeah, so we are going to see some basics on Python and OOPS concepts. So what is OOPS, or object-oriented programming? So that basically, as I said, the basic concept is don't keep repeating what you have done already. Try to use the code more effectively and efficiently. So the basic concepts of OOPS are, so did you have your OOPS subject in your academics or not yet? And it will become easier for me. Let me look into chat. Did you have OOPS yet? Okay, cool. So some of the basic concepts are we use classes, objects, what else? Methods, functions or methods, whatever you call it. And some basics concepts, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. I think these are the basic concepts that we use in an object-oriented programming paradigm. So all these enforces you to basically reuse your existing code and stuff, reinventing the wheel again and again. So let's write some code to explain these concepts. So I'm going to use Python. So you might have already tried it, so I'll go a little faster with this. Is there a lab for you in OOPS? Okay, let me continue. So let me start with classes and object. So for example, to talk more about class, so I would say class is more of a kind of a blueprint for your object, blueprint of an object. So for example, say we call car as class, and a basic example of an object, say I would say BMW X6, an object of class car. So basically, you would say a class is something that describes if you are going to draw a car and your class defines the picture and your object is the real-time car of it. So that is how I would imagine. So an object, so it's basically a uh, instantiation of your class. There won't be any memory allocated the moment you instantiate until unless you assign some variables or you do some operation that involves memory. So in Python, it's very simple. How do you create an object? Say you name your object as obj, say for car as a class. So this is how you instantiate your car class in Python. It's very simple. So I'm picking Python to explain these because for me it looked very easier. So when I was in college, even we had OOPs, but most of my learning happened once after I come into the industry. But that is not the case for you guys right now, because you have a lot of resources, especially a lot of free resources that is available across the internet, which you can utilize it, which was not the case when we came out of college. Okay, let's start writing some code. So anyway, whatever I'm writing here, I'm going to push all these into the GitHub repo. So even last week's session that's available there in the repo, I'll push all these also into the repo. I'm creating a Python file called that's an object. So I'll create my class. So I'll use the same name, whatever I have kept for my file. So one advantage of using Python is you don't need to worry much about the curly braces that you use. In fact, you don't use it here at all. So I used to have a lot of issues with braces when I used to write code in my early days. But programming languages like either say Python or Golang, they all try to get rid of it so that your code will look more cleaner, and also you can write your code in a faster manner than before. So I just want to execute this code and show you. So I just use keyword called pass. Pass just doesn't do anything, just goes through this code. Let me open a terminal. Okay. I have already installed because I'm using Mac. In Mac, Python comes by default. But if you want to start working on Python, go to python.org and download the latest bundle based on your OS, whether you use Linux or Windows or Mac. So download your bundle and then install it on your machine. So every language has its own binaries that needs to be installed, and also that comes with a nice documentation. If you get any blocker or anything, just read about the documentation, how it is done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to run this. So it doesn't do anything. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was expecting. So now let's write a constructor. How to write a constructor in Python? It's very simple. So You write double underscores init double underscores and pass self as an argument. Self is basically an instance variable through which you can access this object, this particular instance objects. So I'm not going to do anything. Oh, very. I don't need to add semicolons here. That's another advantage of using Python. So basically in the constructor, I'm just printing something. Not doing anything fancy here. So just trying to run. Let's try something differently. It's not working. Okay, let's do something, some sample. Let's assume this class that we are going to create for cars. So a car can have, say, what are the attributes a car can have. So these attributes are going to be your instance variables. So for example, a car can have, say, a model, and what else? A car can have color. So how do you initialize this? So one thing that is important in Python is the indentation that you do. So if you can see, I'm using tabs to indent my function and also my variables. Now I'm going to assign. So this self is exactly similar to this operator you use in other language. Okay, now let's create a new object, say car. My first car. And you need to pass a model and color. So BMW, color is black. It's all good. Let's try running. Good. Let's try printing. First car dot model. So the main useful use case of these IDEs are, so it will help you to write your code faster. If you can see, it almost shows me all the keywords that once I start typing, you don't need to write everything. You can use these shortcuts to write your code faster. That will be really helpful once you start doing the development. So yeah, okay, let me just reuse this code. I can just type my second car. Okay, so now let's try executing. Depends both my different instances. So what we are doing here is we are creating an instance of this class with the arguments we pass in the constructor, and these variables that is only local to that particular instance. So let's try doing one thing. Okay, let's add one class level variable. So this variable that is available to the whole class. So what I'm going to do now, and so I'm going to access a class variable. So I use this underscore class keyword. Same for my second car. Keyword. Okay, so if you can see the word hello that was printed across both these instances, so which is common to both these objects, because since this is a class variable, so similarly you can define something that is applicable only on the class level, not on instance level. We'll see more examples for it. So any doubts till now, or anything else, any other queries related to that you have before I get into further examples? We can talk about it. Yeah, is there any query? Sorry. Okay, thanks Vignesh. Hey, if I'm talking something that you couldn't understand, please stop me there, because I'm trying to explain it in a way that in a very simple manner. Because once we start getting into more uh, detailed application building, or getting into further session with more code, then it will become difficult for you to understand. So stop me now itself, if even if you have any basic doubts. Because I used to have a lot of doubts when I was in college. So sometimes I'll sit blank without understanding anything, but I'll try to ask as much as possible whenever I have doubts. Most of the time, I ask my friends, and to be honest, I'm one of the type. Uh, Most of the time, I copy from my friends' assignments. So that is how I have learned. All my friends are 9 pointers, so we all study together. Most of the time I used to listen to the stories when they are studying, and try to write it in the exams. Okay, so now we have seen classes and objects. Probably let's go with one example for encapsulation. Let me create another file. Py. Okay, so what is encapsulation? So encapsulation basically enforces that this particular method or variable that is available only to this person and not for others. So it basically enforces that anyone coming from outside, any other external class cannot access a property of this class. They can't easily go and modify it. So the basic functionality of encapsulation enforces that. Probably let's go with one basic example. I'm just naming my classes with the same file name, but it will work without that also. These are some of the common stuff that you need to follow in any language. I think this is the same with Java as well. Some languages are strictly type language where it won't allow you to do something wrong during your compile time, and some languages which will allow you to do some mistakes, but it will fail only at the runtime. So Python is something like that. So let me create a constructor. I'm not passing any value here as an argument. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a private attribute. So when I say private attribute or a private variable, so how do you do it? So you prefix it with uh, double underscore, say, okay, so let me create a variable called my price. My price is 10 rupees. So what I'm going to do now, so I'm going to write another method where it's going to print the value. Let me call this as cell. And I'm selling prices format. So what do you call this? Self dot my price. So I'm going to write one more method. So in the cell method, we are just going to print the value. But what if I need to update the value? So here I'm going to update the value. So I'm going to pass price as an argument here. So what it simply does is just updates the value. So here I'm creating a private attribute. I'm just printing it inside the cell method. Here I'm setting some value here. Okay. So let's create our object for this class. Okay, we have created an instance called encap. So what shall we do now? So I'm going to call my cell method. So let's run this. It is my selling price is 10. Okay. Now Let me try setting the price. And setting price, and then calling the sell method again. So what should it print? It should print. Why? It's not printing 20 because this my price is a private variable for this class here. So if you want to change the variable for this specific instance, how do you do it? So we need to use the proper method that is defined for that. Here, you set price. So it should have been changed by now. Yes. Basically, what I'm doing here is, so this is the basic concept of encapsulation. If you want to restrict someone from accessing your variable, so you enforce that with this concept encapsulation. So all the object-oriented programming languages, this enforces this. They enforce this property of encapsulation to protect a member variable from any external method or function or class from accessing it without a proper permission. So, okay, any doubts here? So otherwise, what I'll do is let's take 2-3 minutes break, then we can rejoin. So it's 10:25. I'll join in another 3 to 4 minutes timeline. Sir, I'll join in 3-4 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Hi everyone. Shall we start? Okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah. So in the meantime, I was able to fix the issue with this. Okay. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So different languages enforces different syntax formats, right? In Python, it is mandatory. This is exactly same as this keyword in Java. Let's try it out. Let's try it out. Let's go to this method. Ready? Just commenting it. This will fail because the signature changed. No. Uh, so it says takes zero positional arguments, but one was given. It throws type error. So, so as I said, let's let's do it. I went back. So so now it throws the same type error for my method. So most of the languages enforces their own specific constraints, and whenever I have doubts, so this is the approach I follow. Whenever I want to learn something new, I will go and find the latest tutorial, best rated tutorial in YouTube or whichever medium that is wherever it is available for free of cost. I'll go and watch a couple of videos, and then I'll start writing my first hello world program or some basics programming. So, mhm, mhm, mhm. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So, sir, the best I would suggest is whenever you have doubts like this, just go and start writing your first program. Then you will clarify it yourself. Yeah. Anyway, I'll upload all these in my repo. You can refer it later. Okay. So, yeah. So we have seen classes, objects, methods, and we have seen one example for encapsulation. So two more things that we discussed earlier, which is inheritance and polymorphism. I think we have enough time. We can do some other experiment also after this. We can compare probably I would say Java, Python, and Golang, how they perform in terms of performance, how fast they are. Let's do some comparison. Okay, let's go to my Visual Studio Code editor. I'm going to create one more class, inheritance. So property inheritance, as the name suggests, so it basically inherits something from its parent. To put that concept in a very simple way. So don't think too much about it. So you inherit something from your parent. That's what all it does. So let's go with sorry, one small example. Let's use the same car class. And let's write the constructor and print something basics. Hey, I am the parent car. Says who am I? Just writing one additional class, sorry, method. Now it says I am a car. Two. Right. So we have defined a class with a constructor and a couple more methods. Now I'm going to create one more class. Say car. Let's use a car name. Okay, let's use Tesla. So what I'm going to do differently here is, now I'm going to inherit some of my parent class property. Here the parent class is car class. So this class Tesla is going to inherit some of the properties defined in the parent. So how do I do? I'll pass on the class name here. Now let me write the constructor for my class Tesla. Okay. So in the constructor, if you want to call constructor of your parent class, how do you do it? You use super keyword, which is similar to other language. Super dot init. So what are you doing differently here? You are passing the parent class name here, and then you're trying to call superclass constructor. So it should print the print statement inside superclass constructor, and then it should print the second print statement in this child class child class constructor. So sorry, let me create my instance. Tesla. So it should by default call the constructor of both parent class as well as child class. So first it calls the parent class constructor, next it prints child class print statement inside the child class. So now let's add couple more methods. Let's add same who am I. If you can see, by default it prints return super dot who am I, because there is a method already defined over there. No, let's write my own who am I. I am Tesla. So now we have written same method on parent class as well as child class. Let's write one more, which is not common between both. We have written what do I do. Let's use what do I don't. Ooh, I can't fly. So I'm going to call my. So this is going to call who am I of my child class or parent class. Let's see. This calls my child class method. So what do I want to, if I want to call something from my parent class, my Tesla dot, what do I do? What do I do is defined in the parent class. What do I don't? Let's try running this. So if you can see, I help you to write, which is defined in the parent class here. So it inherits the property of your parent class. Say if I want to call the method who am I from my parent, how do I do? Let me try. Super. Super. Let's do it here itself. So inside the child, who am I? I'm trying to call the parent, who am I? Let me comment out some of them just to avoid confusion. So basically in the constructor, it prints both child class and parent class print statements. And inside the who am I method, it first calls this parent class who am I method, and then we are printing the child class who am I method, the print statement inside that. So this is how inheritance works, where if you want to inherit some of the property from your parent class, so you use this property, you pass on your class name of your parent, and then you can access the attributes and member variables inside your parent. So with the different programming languages, this differs. So the syntax and the keywords that we use that will differ, like the self, super, all these will be different between different object-oriented languages. So if you can understand one language basics, that will be more than enough for you. So the reason why I suggest Python is Python is widely used at this moment. I would say the whole data science world revolves around Python for now. So even though comparatively it's lesser efficient in terms of performance, but due to its huge developer base and also huge community support, it thrives. So, and also the way how I write Python program, it's so easier comparatively to other languages. So if you look at the code, you can easily understand what it does. That's the basic advantage of using Python. Okay, so now we have seen classes, objects, encapsulation, inheritance. Let's create last concept, polymorphism. So what is polymorphism? So polymorphism is basically, let me bring it up here. Say you have different objects, say square, sorry about my drawing, rectangle, circle, triangle. So now you want to color these shapes. So how you can do it? You can write method that says that color underscore square, color underscore rectangle, color underscore circle, color underscore triangle. So this is one approach how you can do it. Or you can say color and pass my shape. So where you can use one method which colors multiple shapes. You can write your code here. So which one is best approach? So writing one common method to color all the shapes, right? So that's exactly what we do with polymorphism. So basically we try to generalize some of the common actions that we do inside your programming. So okay, let me better explain it with a simple example. I'm trying to explain everything with as simpler as possible, but stop me if you have any doubts. Okay, let me use the same car. So here what we are trying to do. Okay, let's not add a constructor here. I'm writing another class. Define my job. What does a car do? Dude, right on me. Now let's define this is a car. Let's my job. Dude, travel on me. No, that's bad. Okay. Sail on me. One more. Dude, fly on me. Okay. So basically, we have defined three classes here, and all these classes have one common method called my job. So instead of defining three methods, if we need to generalize in a simpler manner, so what do you do? So you ask what you do, and you pass the vehicle name. What it does, this object dot my job. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to create one method. So outside of these classes, so where it takes an object called vehicle as an argument, and that object calls my job method. So instead of creating a different instance of car, ship, and rocket, you create an object, and then through the object you call the common method that is associated. So for example, say for the car, I create my car instance, and I'm going to call car.myjob. So what is it going to do? Python polymorphism. It says it calls the my job method of a car instance. So the same is applicable for ship and rocket as well. Instead, what if I do? Let me create all the three instances. Ship equal to ship, and rocket equal to rocket. So I have created all the instances for car, ship, and rocket. Now what I'm going to do is, instead of calling these individual instance car.myjob, I'm going to call this common method, what do you do? And going to pass on my car object, ship object, and rocket object. It's going to comment out this, sorry. Then you need to use hash to comment it out. What is going to make you an efficient developer is you get used to one particular IDE and then utilize all its best shortcuts possible. So you can write your code efficiently and you can be more productive. Learn that. Okay, so basically what I'm calling this method, what do you do with three different objects? So now by passing this object, I'm calling this comment method vehicle dot my job. So instead of calling this my job 3 times, I can now write it in a loop and call this way. So this is mainly useful when you want to abstract out some of the common methods that is used between different classes and write it in one place. So this concept polymorphism is definitely helpful to accomplish it. So I would say these are the basics of object-oriented language paradigm. But once you start using it on your real application, you will understand more. So anyway, we are eventually going to do in the further sessions when we are going to build a real working application. We will encounter all this and we will try to optimize our code as much as possible. So you can also suggest me how some of these OOPS concept can be integrated into our application, where we can make use of these concepts as well as write more efficient code instead of rewriting the code again and again. So that's the main advantage of using these languages. So why do we need these concepts OOPS? So as I said, you can write your code in procedural approach or functional approach. So I would say the basic necessary is, for example, say you have a data set, say a student data set. Let me write some sample. So this is Mumbai. So location, sorry, not sure about the exact age. Cricketer, profession, and some random number. Location, age. Okay, some tag 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's see from 33 or 34. Okay, captain. Okay, say in a real application you have some data set, and you are trying to access these elements by its index. Tomorrow you are writing some application where you are running it in a loop where you are accessing this index, the ID number, which is defined in the last index, which is index of 3. But you are accessing in a loop. Suddenly you are trying to access breadth of 3 and it doesn't exist. Where does it go? So this is one basic example why an approach like this fail, where you define your data and you try to do it in a more of a very primitive approach. So what you could have done is you could have uses classes and objects, where all these can be more efficiently handled, and an error like this can be handled it in a better way so that your application won't fail or your application won't crash. So this is one basic example why an approach like OOPS is necessary. But it's not mandatory to use object-oriented paradigm across all the applications that you build. It depends on the application that you are building. Any queries? Otherwise, let's go and quickly build one comparison between Java, Python, and Golang. I'll do some simple program between all the three. Any queries? Okay, there is no doubt. Okay, so first I'm going to write a simple Java program. Let's write simple loops. I call it Java loop at Java. Correct me if I'm making any mistake. It's very difficult to switching between multiple languages. That is where something like this IDE will help you to write the syntax properly. So in Java, we use a method called public static void main, which will be called by default when you execute the program. String args. If you want to pass an arguments, you can pass in your arguments here. Int val equal to 0. I'm just initializing a variable. For and I equal to 0, I less than 100, I plus plus. A simple for loop. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say val equal to val plus. That's it. Or even you can write it in a more efficient manner. Val plus equal to I. So nothing fancy here. How much time you think it will take to execute? Probably let's use some simple way to calculate the execution time. Let's use Java. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark down the time before and after the for loop. Very simple way of doing it to calculate the execution time. And date b2. And after calculating, checking the timestamp before and after the for loop, I'm just going to print out the time difference between both. So we may not see much difference when your count is like 100, but as in when we increase it, we are going to see huge difference, I guess. Let's see. So how do I do it? Sorry, power just went off. Okay. So I'm just going to do simple subtraction. Get time minus one dot get time. Okay, we need to compile it. Oh yeah, sorry. That's the problem when you switch between Python and Java. Okay. Okay, it's compiled. We'll not see much difference. Let's generally, I think it prints it in milliseconds. Because 100K doesn't matter. Million. Oops. Million. Uh, okay, I'm sorry. Right. Okay, now we are seeing difference. Let me reduce it again. Yeah, so here you'll start seeing the difference. 10K, 100K, million, 10 million. Okay, it's 10 million. 100 million pixels. 8 millisecond. Okay, now this is in Java. Let's do the same in Python. Exactly, let's try mimic the same program. I loop. So you can define everything as class and object. Otherwise, if you want the exact equivalent of public static void main in Python is if main equal, we'll call the main. By default, this will be executed. So we don't need to define the data type, integer or string, whatever, because it's a loosely typed language. It's right for I in range of r plus equal to. Okay, so there we import a date class. Here we import time class. Fine. Let's do the same thing. Say t1 equal to in the time. T2 equal to now. Let me print the difference between. So all exactly similar code. Try running it. Sorry, how does it print? Let me try adding more. Not sure about this. 100K million and 7 zeros. Is it same here? Yeah. Let me try with 7 zeros. Okay, I think this prints in seconds, not in milliseconds here. Here it is. Milliseconds. Here, between seconds and milliseconds. Let me add 8 zeros, same as my Java code. Let me see how much time does it take. You can see the difference. So it takes almost 7.5 seconds. It has 8 zeros, right? Okay, let me reconfirm it. Yeah, 8 zeros. And this also has 8 zeros. Can you see the difference? Java runs it in 37 milliseconds, and Python takes almost 8 seconds. The exact same operation. We didn't make any difference. Now, let's do the same in Golang. So to execute Golang, you need to init that here. Go more. Okay. Let's do the same operation in Go language. If you're new to Golang, just go and read how Go performs compared with other languages. Let's try it anyway. Go loop. Okay, give me some time. So here initialize main function. Declare a new integer value. For print statement, we need formatting library. It throws some error. The advantage of using Golang is even if a particular import statement is not utilized in your code, it will start throwing error. So during your compile time itself, which is more advantage, you can detect all the errors at an early stage rather than finding it at the end. Okay, sorry. We are going to write a for loop. And start with 100 I plus plus. So this for loop just without the brackets equal to I. Okay, so exact same program. Now we are going to and execution time. Same thing, we are importing time. So we use this colon equal to assign values. Time dot now. But now find the difference. How do we do it? T2 dot subtract T1. Use format ln these things. You get confused if you keep using different languages. Stick to one language, become an expert in it. Best way. What is the issue? Let's try running it. I don't know. I need to check. Let me run it. Go run. Okay. Yeah, yes, caps. Sub different. It says 208 nanoseconds. Now 6 zeros. Now it came to microseconds, and we use the same 8 zeros, 100 times more. So this executes in 34 milliseconds. Execute it, 33, 32. So some of these data might be cached, how it works internally. So toggles between 32 and 33, 34 now. But one thing I can definitely say is comparatively it's better than Java. And comparatively between Go and Java, Python is really, I would say, worst, because you can literally see the difference, how much time it takes. So yeah, so this is very simple comparison between these languages. But when you write it all these definitely matters the kind of application you write. If you are going to write some computationally expensive code, then you need to look into all these very carefully, which language you are going to pick, which method you are going to pick, how are you going to assign it to assign a variable. All these we need to look into very carefully. But in general, if you are building a more generic application, you don't need to worry much. But all these does matter in terms of the performance of your application. We can keep comparing multiple languages. You can compare Python, C, C++. But the languages like Java or Golang, which will give more better performance, very closer to an output from C, C++. But languages like Python and others, so that will definitely give lesser performance compared to languages like Java and Golang. So yeah. So if you are building your own application, you better choose which works better for you. But if you are building a web app, I would still suggest go with Python, because it's very easy to build with Python, because we are going to see a few samples how to build an application with Python. We'll see whether we can use Java or other languages to build our application. But all my experiments, I'm going to use Python. Because I like writing code in Python. It's easier to write comparatively to other languages. But you choose which one works better for you. Okay, we are about time. So probably for today's uh, assignment, you can write one example for classes, object, encapsulation, polymorphism, and inheritance. And if time permits, if you want to compare other languages in the same way how we benchmark, you can do a different computationally intensive task rather than what I did, and try benchmarking with different languages so that you can understand how different languages perform, and which one you like. You can pick the best one that is comfortable to you. Okay, any queries? I'm going to push all these code into my repo. So if you are not following this, you can find it from, you can search my name to find, search GitHub, this comes up. This is the first repository, the one on the top. So the first session, whatever we spoke, I have kept all the stuff here. Sorry about my handwriting. I'll try to make it better. But I'm going to push whatever code I have written right now into a separate folder here. I'll keep doing the same for further sessions as well. I'll be keep updating the links, the presentation link, and also the recordings link if you want to have a reference on a later point. What I would suggest is, if you want to have your own version of this whole session, whatever we are going to talk now, and also we are going to build a separate application, I would suggest you build a different application than what I'm going to show in the demo. So this will help you the way how you code. This will help you in your interviews as well, because this is this is one you can add these link in your resumes, that these are the work that you have done and these are the application that you have built. So try following the same of what I'm doing. So that will you can keep it as a reference, and also you can talk more about these in your interviews, how you prepared yourself and what are the different experiments you did during your preparation. Okay, so yeah, I'll just leave it open for any questions. We still have 5 more minutes. Sorry, any queries? You can ping in the chat. Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah. But do reach out to me if you have any queries further. So I have kept my contact here. You can reach out to me on any platform, LinkedIn or any other platform. I'm available on all the platforms. If you search by my name, they should be able to help you. And also, I have kept some of these links here. Whenever you find free time, go ahead and read it. So all these will be definitely helpful to make yourself better during your, especially during your interviews. So we'll see if time permits. I can explain some of these things and what is described there. I'll try to cover as much as possible when I'm explaining other topics. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Definitely. So I'll try to cover some application that is built using Golang, but I would still suggest to build an application use Python because it's easier to build. But let's see in the further sessions. Let's try building some application in Golang, some in Python. But all the references I'm going to add in this document here in my repo. So I'm keep on updating all the references. Anything I am referring to prepare for these sessions, I'm going to keep adding it here. And one more thing I started talking about in the beginning, just go and check this website, education.github.com. That is definitely going to be helpful for both the teachers as well as students. Yeah, I'll take this as a suggestion to cover something in Golang. Yeah, we'll see that in the upcoming sessions. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the feedback. Yeah, anything else? Otherwise, we can wind up. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. We'll see. Catch you all soon. Thank you. Bye bye.